Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. So if you're new here, I am Carissa and I run a home daycare channel that I just kind of started up about 3 months ago. We just hit 300 subscribers. Thank you guys so much. That's like amazing to me that people are actually subscribing and like into this channel. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate the support. I can't even tell you. So I just kind of want to get into our video today. Yeah, it's been requested that I do some behavior talk with you guys on how I deal with negative behaviors in my childcare and maybe just some tips and tricks for you. And I'll just kind of let you know how I deal with things. So I think my best place to start actually would probably be a background story on me and why I'm somewhat qualified to even be speaking about this. So my son, Charlie, he just turned 7 years old. He came into the world 6 pounds, 14 ounces, and he was active from the moment of conception. I'm telling you guys, this kid is busy. If I can find some, I'm gonna put in some pictures of just how chaotic life has been with Charlie, but honestly, it's been amazing. We had quite a story. So around the time he was 4 to 5 months old, I could tell that something was different about this child, and it was because he just didn't want to be held. He wanted to be moving, like, constantly. He was moving his arms and his legs, and he just didn't stop. Like, he just moved constantly. When we finally discovered the Adhd Jolly Jumper, he lived in that thing. I have pictures of him sleeping in it. So many pictures of this kid in this Jolly Jumper, because before he could walk, this is how he moved. He jumped. So he would spend, like, I'm not joking when I say this, he spent probably 5 to 6 hours a day in the jumping thing. He was so happy in that thing. That's where he liked to be. If he would get really upset, he'd start crying. We'd put him in his Jolly Jumper and he would be fine. We literally took that Jolly Jumper everywhere we went. While I was doing Girl Guide meetings, he would come with me. I'd bring the Jolly Jumper. I have so many pictures of that. Just like, this kid was always in it. I can't stress that enough. So I knew something was a little bit different with him compared to Harlow, my daughter, who's 10. She really liked to be held and she liked to play and just have tummy time, but she really liked cuddles, right? So I figured something was a little different. I wasn't sure if it was just, oh, he's a boy, or like it was ADHD. Like, I wasn't sure at the time. But as he grew, his movements, they started getting like much more frequent. At, I think, like 8 months old, he stood up for the first time on his own. It was like a month till he started walking. So he was such an early walker, and as soon as he could walk, he could climb and he could run, and like he was moving. So once he started moving, he never stopped. And to this day, even, he is still a mover and shaker of this world. That kid is here with a purpose. Like, he is here with a serious purpose. And I always say this, I was given this child to teach me patience. Harlow made me an awesome mom. Charlie made me a patient mom. So, yeah, around the age 2, I started getting really stressed out because, like, it just figured like something is going on. Like there's so many things about him. He had so many tendencies. Like if his hands would get dirty, he would freak out. Like not just like a subtle freak out, like a absolute meltdown, crying, very upset. Like this kid, he hated getting his hands dirty when he was younger. And just like little things like that. He would have, I felt like at the time we had more meltdowns during the day than we did happy moments in the day. And I felt so stressed out because I was like, I don't understand why this is happening. It didn't happen with Harlow. Like something's going on with this child. So I started looking for answers, and a friend had like messaged me and she's like, hey, why don't you like try out these guys? They just diagnosed my kid with ADHD. And he was about 18 months to maybe 2 years old. And I called them. And they came the next week for an in-home interview. And basically, as soon as she walked in the house, she was like, yeah, I can see. I see what's happening here. She's like, this definitely looks like ADHD, but I'm going to give you some resources. You go check out the resources, and like the proper people can give the diagnosis. So it was actually about a 2-year wait by the time we got Charlie diagnosed. They did test him, like, well, they didn't test him. They analyzed him, and they told me it wasn't autism. They had checked into autism quite heavily because they weren't sure. He seemed to fit a lot of the criteria for autism, but he just, like, you could have a conversation with this kid and it would be okay. So around the time that he had just turned 4, we finally got in to go see a psychologist, and instantly the psychologist diagnosed him severe ADHD with ODD, which I don't know if you guys know this, but ODD stands for oppositional defiant disorder. So basically that's his meltdowns and his not listening. Like he'd rather do what he wants to do than what we want to tell him to do. We did choose to go the route of medicating our child. That is not something that I took lightly, because he was only 4 at the time when he went to be medicated. But like, I have to stress to you guys, this child had been kicked out of a preschool. Life for us was not okay. Like, as a mom, I felt like I was checking out more than I was present in the situation. And I honestly think that was really hard on me as well as my daughter. I grew up with my brother being ADHD, and I just remember all of the attention always being on him, because that's where it needed to go. Like, there was nothing wrong with me. I was just like Harlow, and I didn't want the same thing for Harlow, because I felt, I guess, at sometimes left out. So we didn't want her to feel like she was being left out at all. And even now, to this day, he's 7, and I still really struggle with that, having an ADHD kid and I guess I'll say a normal child. Not that Charlie's not normal, but just for comparison's sake. So yeah, I struggle with that sometimes, just trying to keep Harlow, like, giving her enough attention when it feels like all the attention is on her brother. So I know, personally that is a hard thing. But so I have lived, well, Charlie's 7, so, and I grew up with a brother who had ADHD and ODD as well. That's basically how I've learned to deal with these type of kids. In my own childcare, I have taken four ADHD kids. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. Some of them were not a good fit for me, and I did end up terminating care. And that was more for a safety reason on the other children's part, rather than me just not wanting to deal with it. So how do I deal with these extreme behaviors in my day home? First off, I'm going to say patience. Patience is the most important thing in any situation that you have with an ADHD child. If you don't have patience for a child, going with an ADHD child is definitely something you're going to want to avoid. I will say for me, I don't feel like before I had Charlie that I was a patient person. I just didn't have the practice to deal with something that required that much patience. I always say my lesson in this life is to learn patience, and it's kind of fitting that I had Charlie, and that was my thing. I used to always say to Kyle, I'm like, the universe put me here so that I could learn patience. And then I was blessed with Charlie, and oh boy, have I had to learn patience. So yeah, I just didn't have the practice in having patience before I had Charlie. Harlow was not a kid that I had to say to her like 20 times in the morning to go get dressed. Like it was a, oh, okay, Mom, I'll go do it the first time you ask. And like, that's the difference between ADHD and a normal child. An ADHD kid, they just can't stop moving. How the doctor explained it to me is they are a car that is pushing down on the gas and they don't have a brake. Like there's no brake in their car. So we did choose to medicate Charlie just so that we could give him the option of braking and slowing down. He also explained to us that with these kids that have ADHD, a lot of them end up with addictions. He explained it like drugs, alcohol, sex kind of addictions as they get older, like in their teens and adulthood type situation, because they haven't been given the proper skills to slow themselves down. Now, take from that what you will. I don't know, like, if that's more of a scare tactic for us or what, but honestly, I just felt like with the amount of meltdowns that we were having a day, I just thought that there was really nothing that we wouldn't try at that point just to make our life a little less stressful than it had been over the years. So we did choose to medicate our son. And that's not to say that all these kids need to be medicated. I think that is 100% on the parents and what they feel is best for their child. They know their child better than anyone. Like, that's how that is. But as a child care provider, you can make sure that you are having patience, that you are taking the time to understand this child's needs and how you can better help this child. One thing that's very common with these kids is meltdowns. You're going to find that when you switch activities, they're going to get really upset, especially if they're into the activity. And so I find that Having warnings works really well. Give them a 15-minute warning, then give them a 10-minute warning, then a 5-minute warning, then 4, 3, 2, 1, right? That's how I like to do it, to make sure they understand, okay, you've got like 2 more minutes, okay? So make sure you get that playtime in because we're going to do something else next. And it's going to be really fun too. And sometimes it's not fun. The next thing that we're doing is not fun, and they might still have a little tantrum. And you know what? You kind of just have to work through it. That's just how their brain is structured. Their brain doesn't work like another normal child's brain. Like, they have a lot of complex needs, and sometimes they would just rather, instead of our brain working and analyzing the situation and understanding it, they have what we call a lizard brain. And it's kind of like your survival instinct brain. So your fight or flight brain takes over. And that happens a lot for kids with ADHD. So it's really just like a fight or flight kind of instinct that they want to keep doing what they're doing. I don't know how to really explain that. This is just what I've been explained. So when we have those problems in day home, the best thing to do is talk it out. I give them warnings. I make sure they understand, okay, at this time we're going to do this, at this time we're going to do this. It's just repetition, schedule, and understanding that the child might have a freak out. They could just have a bad day and there could be a freak out happening. So it's just important to understand that this could happen and that we need our tools to work around it when it does. So Charlie's having a freak out. What can I do? I stop what I'm doing. I will give him a hug and I will say, hey buddy, you know what? I really understand that you still want to play with those blocks. We need to start getting ready for lunch. So we're going to go wash our hands and we're going to eat lunch. But we do have another time in the afternoon where you can come back and play with your blocks. So what if instead of cleaning them up, we leave your special blocks right there and you can come back to it after. That one saved me a lot of times, is if I say, you know what, we're going to come back to it. That's something that I can get him back on track with, I guess you could say. Sometimes when I don't have time to sit and do my whole patient thing, I just I leave the resources there for him. One resource that I did find is called a calm down kit. I think a few people have them available on TPT, but I got mine from Pocket of Preschool and I love it, guys. It's amazing. So a calm down kit it's basically, it's printables, but you have to put the kit together. Things that the kids can do to calm themselves down so that they're ready to rejoin the group, basically. So let's see, yoga poses. There's sensory bottles, fidget toys, reading stories, going for a walk, pushing on the wall. I'm just trying to think, dance. It comes with a story that they can read, and I will tell you right now, my ADHD kids, they know that story off by heart. Every time they have a freak out, we go sit down at the calm down corner and I will read them that book and they will literally recite it for me word for word. They know it that well. That's one of the things that we do. A lot of positive reinforcement. Take, for example, if he doesn't want to stop playing with his blocks so that we can set up lunch, maybe I'll say something like, hey, would you mind helping me set up lunch? Or would you mind passing out the napkins to all the kids and giving them a job, something that they can be involved with? That's a huge one. that can turn their entire situation around there. Just getting them to be helpful, because they are so helpful. These kids, they really want to make you proud. And honestly, when they can, and you show that you're proud, oh my goodness, you're going to have a different kid. I will say that right now. You don't want to become enemies with an ADHD kid. You want to be on their good side. You want to be the fun person in their life where they can turn to. And you know what? If they make a mistake and they're jumping around and they spill some milk, I just say, oh, I guess we got to clean that up. And then I'm like, could you help me? And I'll just give them some paper towels. And you know what? I don't make a big deal of it. I just don't, because it's just going to stress them out. Because you know what? Sometimes these kids, not all parents are like this, where they can just be calm about everything. And guys, I am not saying that I can be calm about everything all the time either. Having a kid with ADHD is hard. It is hard to maintain a positive demeanor when it's constant chaos. So just take that. Parents with ADHD kids, they're under a ton of stress, okay? And that stress does not go away. When they go to school, I am getting phone calls every single week to come pick up my kid because he's disrupting the class. So I'm just saying, like, this, you really need to be gentle on parents with ADHD kids. Don't be like, your kid was bad again today, okay? I would never start a conversation like that. I would say, hey, you know what? So-and-so did so good today, and we worked so hard. When he spilt his milk earlier, he did all the work himself and he cleaned it up. And you praise that kid like so hard. You praise that kid so hard, because mom is, number one, going to appreciate the hell out of you for loving her kid, understanding her kid, being patient with her kid when she's at work and she's stressing about this child. And two, the kid is going to respect you so much more. When an ADHD kid comes in, I make sure and I set our boundaries. I say, you know what? These are the rules at my house. And again, another resource I use, Red and Green Choices from Pocket of Preschool. Amazing, guys, amazing. Let me insert a picture here of mine since the basement is locked down and I can't really get it. But let me insert a picture here. So we have our green choices and our red choices. The green choices are things that we want to see in our childcare, and the red choices are things we don't want to see in our childcare. Whenever a child makes a red choice, don't worry, every single child will call him out on it as soon as they know about red and green choices. We go over to the board and we say, okay, so you made this red choice of hitting your friend. What can we do next time instead of hitting our friend? Oh, maybe we could use gentle hands and we could share our toys instead of getting upset and hitting our friend for taking away our doll. We could share, or we could come and tell a grown-up that you weren't done with that toy yet, and maybe Miss Carissa can help you. Red and Green Choices has changed the way my childcare is run. Seriously, parents come back to me on a daily basis and they will tell me the cutest, funny stories. Swearing is a red choice, so they like to call mom and dad out on making red choices when mom and dad swear. So I've gotten lots of feedback on that. It's all been positive though. The kids know, like, it's good behavior versus negative behavior, right? So we want to see the positives and not the negatives. And when a kid does make a green choice, you praise that kid. This doesn't matter if it's an ADHD kid or a normal kid. You just praise that kid for making a green choice over a red choice. So I really think that everybody, if you haven't already, definitely check out the red and green choices. I honestly think it's like $3. Don't quote me. Could be a little bit more, but it's worth it. I'm telling you, it is worth it. I have my red and green choices from Pocket of Preschool, and I have our Calm Down kit from Pocket of Preschool as well. And I love both those resources, and I will link them down in the description box below so that you can find them as well. Other things you can do when a child is misbehaving or it's something you don't want to see, like swearing, I don't try and bring a ton of attention to it, because if I give too much attention to negative behavior, then they're gonna think that's how they get my attention, right? So we really want to teach them that the positives are how we get our attention, not the negatives. So if I see a child screaming and having a fit, I will just leave them alone and I'll say, hey, you know what, honey? When you're done screaming, you can come and talk to me, okay? And I'll go sit down. And that's honestly what I will do. I will leave that child to scream, and 9 times out of 10, they will turn it around if it's nothing, and they'll just come and sit on my lap for a quick cuddle. And sometimes that's all they need. They're just looking for some attention. The other time out of 10 that they don't come to me, I'll leave them for maybe a minute or two just to see if they'll like calm down. If they won't calm down, I'll go to them and I'll just be like, hey, I think you need a hug. It's getting close to lunch. Maybe you're hangry. Maybe you're getting really, really tired and we need to focus on eating a little bit quicker today so that we can go down for a nap. So that's something I would also do. And then, yeah, just being present, I think. When kids ask you something, I think it's so important that you don't ignore them. So sometimes in our day, it's like I can take 6 kids, plus Charlie's home 90% of the time with us because the school just can't handle him right now. Don't worry, I've moved him to a different school for next year. But yeah, so I've got pretty much 7 kids here a day, and it can be really mentally draining. Oh, Miss Carissa, watch me do this. Miss Carissa, I need this, Miss Carissa. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, if I hear Miss Carissa one more time, I'm going to cry. And I just think it's important that that's where your self-care needs to come in too, and making sure that you're getting enough sleep at night, you are taking care of yourself. If you need coffee during the day, you have yourself that coffee. If you need 5 minutes in the bathroom, you just take your 5 minutes. That's why I got cameras, and you know what? I can watch the kids, make sure they're safe, and I can still go to the bathroom by myself with the door closed. So that's a positive for me. When I see, again, guys, when I see just like normal, I really hate calling them normal. I think all the kids are normal, just not ADHD kids. When I see them getting upset with each other, I think it's also a learning moment. And you can take something from that for them. You can teach them a skill in that moment. Somebody took away their toy. Maybe they're 4 years old, and maybe a 1-year-old took away their toy. You say, hey, you know what? That's just a baby. Like, she doesn't mean that. I'll get you your toy back. Please don't hit. And, you know, just be understanding. And I think it's always the best thing to do is keep your calm. If you keep your calm, everything will be okay. If you add your chaos to their chaos, it's just gonna be so stressful for everyone. These kids are really relying on you to be calm and patient and loving with them. And I think for me, it does come down to mental health. And if you have a child that you've taken into your care and you think, I can do ADHD, it's okay. Like, my son has ADHD. I can take a kid with ADHD and then that child starts getting on your nerves, I guess. I want to give you an example. I took in a kid years ago. So yeah, it was like when I first started up. Mom warned me right off the get-go that this boy was severe ADHD with aggression. And I said, well, you know what? I will try it. I can't promise you anything. I do have that month in my contract, which I think everybody should have for every kid, no matter what. And basically, I tried it for, I don't know, I think he was here for like 3 weeks. And at first, he was really good. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, I can deal with this. Like, he's listening. But as he got more comfortable, super aggressive to the point where it became a safety issue for the other kids in my care. He was on timeout once for smashing his car into one of the other kids' heads. Yeah, and one of the babies walked by him and he started punching at her, like physically punching at her. At that point, I called Mom and I said, I'm waiting on the step with him. You need to come pick him up. I can't deal with this behavior. It's not safe in a daycare situation to have a child like that. There's a difference between aggression and learning. And sometimes they need to learn that aggression is not a way that we communicate. It's a negative, and they need to be taught that, but not by a daycare teacher. You know what I mean? At that point, I did terminate that child, and that was for the safety of my daycare. So that's something important. If you don't mesh with the child, it's important that you understand that you're not going to mesh with every child, and that sometimes we just need to back off and say, you know what, this isn't working out for me. So that's one thing I would suggest to you guys. As far as punishment goes, timeout is the worst punishment that you can get in my daycare. But at the same time, I don't even like to give timeouts because I don't really think they work. So I just say, you know what, you need to go down to the calm down kit, and you can pick a couple activities in there, and you can do those while you calm down. And it's kind of like a timeout, but it's not really. Like, the kids are able to get up when they're done, and it's just kind of really just a moment for them to recompose themselves. And I am telling you, my kids use it by themselves. I don't even have to tell them. If they get into an argument with a friend, they will go to that corner and they will sit down and they will do the activities because it's calming and it's regulating and they want to feel better. And I think it's so important to teach kids these basic skills. If I don't like what someone's doing, I can walk away. I can go sit in my calm down corner and I can read a book and I can recompose myself, and then I can go back and say, hey, you know what? I didn't like what you did. That was a red choice. And I've actually heard them go to the board and say, look, you can do this green choice instead. And the entire time, guys, I will sit there, I will watch this go down, and I'm just like, this is amazing. Like, this is amazing. I am telling you, all of you need this. I know this is going to be a long video, and I hope it doesn't sound like I'm just rambling on. This is just what I do. I'm just a mom. This is how I deal with my daycare and my son. And, you know, everybody is different. Every child has different needs. So I think as long as you're doing the best you can and keeping a good communication with parents, you're gonna succeed. But again, if the child is too much for you, I think terminating it should always be an option because it would be what's best for the child and for you. If you can't handle the child, then somebody else can. Sometimes we just clash, and it's better off that the kid goes to a different daycare. Thanks for checking out my video. If you're not already, do hit that subscribe button. If you guys have any specific questions that you would like to ask me on ADHD or ODD, you can ask them down in the description box below. For now, I will see you in the next video. Bye.